Next into the tank is a company that encourages kids to play with their food.
No, 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 no. Sharks. My name is Tomo. I'm a stay-at-home dad to two very, very picky eaters, and I cannot tell you the number of times I've heard the word no. It's the one superpower that kiddos can wield over their parents from a really young age, and the place they use it most is the dinner table. Let's turn those no's into yeses with Noshi. Edible organic food paint and condiments that kids can use to turn any mealtime into an art class.
Whatever you're doing right now, I need you to stop what you're doing and give some super claps for Super Tomo. Woo! Welcome, Tomo. How you doing today?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to have you here. Happy to chat about business and your Shark Tank experience and everything. So let's jump right in to what was your relationship with Shark Tank prior to ever thinking you would get to go on Shark Tank? Were you a fan, not a fan?
I was very aware of it. I mean, the idea for food paint was put in front of me by a family friend in February of 2015. In April of 2015, we put a Kickstarter online trying to raise $20,000 to further, pursue this project. And 10 days after the Kickstarter went live, I got an email from Shark Tank, which said, "Oh my God, this is an amazing product. We'd love to put you on the show. It's really late in the application process. Can you do a call on Monday?" And I was like, wow, that was easy. Yes, I'd love to do a call on Monday. So I did the call on the Monday, which lasted an hour. And at the end, it went really well. I was on the call with the whole production team in LA. And at the end of the call, they said, okay, give us a couple of months and we'll get back to you. Actually, it might have been less than a couple of months, but she said she would, the head producer said she would get back to me as soon as possible. And meanwhile, we didn't have a product because obviously the idea was only 3 months old at that time. And so I'd worked out that I needed a food scientist. I'd found a food scientist. It ended up not being a great match. He didn't really understand what we were trying to do. And he was sending me samples in the middle of summer in New York in unrefrigerated packaging. And I was opening them in 100-degree heat. And I remember he sent me this parcel and the samples he had sent for some reason were almost 50% coconut oil, which I hadn't requested. All I had said to him was, I want fruit and vegetable puree that's shelf stable and store ready. So I opened these samples and they look like salad dressing that it had separated in the heat. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, this is a nightmare. And as I was sitting there with these things in my hands, my phone rang and I saw that it had an LA area code. And I was like, oh my God, it's Shark Tank. I'm going to have to say we can't do it. And I picked up the phone and I said, hey, and she said, hey. And I said, she said, Tommy, we love your product, but you don't actually have a product yet. And I said, I know. And I don't think we can do the show, right? And she said, no, you're not quite ready yet. And I said, well, how does this work? I mean, have we missed our chance here? And she said, no, let me know when you get your product into stores and we'll talk then. Fast forward 2 years and we were just about to go into stores and I emailed her and she had left her job at Shark Tank. So it all sort of went by the wayside. But of course, by that point, I was very distracted in getting our first product into first stores and we sort of grew from there and I made peace with it. And then last April, I don't know how much to bounce back and forth here because my wife was in the UK at the time. We had decided that she should probably go and stay with her parents for a few months because she was sick and I was trying to get my business moving and didn't really have the ability to look after her and the kids and focus on the business. So she went back to the UK. I was sitting here thinking, being proactive. And I was like, okay, I've got to do the fancy food show in the summer. I'm going to launch Crayola food paint and I'm going to launch SketchUp. What else can I do to be proactive? Oh, I remember I've got all those email addresses from Shark Tank from way back in the day. I'll send them all an email because now we're in Walmart and presumably that would be quite interesting to them. So, but at the same time, I was thinking they're not going to reply. There's no way they're going to reply. It's just, too much of a moonshot. So I sent these emails out I found 6 of their emails in my inbox from years ago, sent them all the same email saying, hi, remember me, ? We're in Walmart now. And sent them all off thinking they're not going to respond. And within 20 minutes, they responded. And I did a call with one of them the next day. And from that point on, it just sort of did that pretty quickly. And I ended up being assigned 2 full-time producers in June, so like 6 weeks later. And they worked really closely with me all through last summer until I arrived in the studio on September the 11th, last September.
Wow. Wow. That is that's such a journey that not everybody gets to say that they went through, starting just what, 8 years earlier,
Yeah,
or
well, 7 years.
almost 7 years earlier at the time.
Yeah, between last year and when it first started. Yeah, 7 years.
Crazy, crazy. So were you a fan of Shark Tank though? Because you didn't you kind of skirted that question.
I love the idea. I would love to be able to watch Shark Tank, but I find it so stressful to watch. I can't help but put myself in the shoes of all of those entrepreneurs and know, because I'm an entrepreneur, know just how much is riding on what happens in that studio. And it's just very, very hard for me to watch it. I watched episodes through last summer to prepare for my appearance. But even that I found quite hard. I find it extremely stressful to watch, which is not to say it's not a brilliant show, because it is. Obviously, it's amazing television, and it's just an amazing concept. And I'm so glad that I was a part of it, and I'm so glad that I got to stand in that studio in front of those 5 sharks. It was an amazing experience.
No, that is so true. So I and that's part of the reason why I take such a positive role with my channel and my show, because I want people to realize, like, these are the sharks, they're people, they're also playing characters, and the people that are standing on that carpet are real people with their real businesses, and might be the only business that they ever have or will ever maybe get to own, and it's their baby, right? And they're mortgaging the house on it, right? Or selling their house in some cases to make it work and get it to have legs. So to me, like, I'm always trying to be the advocate for the entrepreneur and how they can best move forward, regardless if they get a deal or not, because, like, you just never know if you're going to close anyway after the fact.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was surreal, the whole experience, standing there in front of them, because they're so familiar. Even though I don't watch it, obviously I know who all 5 of them are. So just standing in that room, on the one hand, you're like, this is the most surreal thing I've ever done. But at the same time, once you're there, I mean, this was my experience anyway. Once I walked out onto that set and was told to stand still while they focused the cameras, and the floor manager said, okay, in a minute, I'm going to say action, and that's when you start your pitch. Like, there's this immense sense of calm that fell over me. I'm like, I have got one shot to get this right, and I'm going to get it right. And it was really, I almost had the Eminem song running through my head.
That's what I was about to say.
You only got one shot. And so you just do it. I mean, to be honest, though, the preparation that they help you with, the extent to which they help you with the preparation is amazing. They're all very, very good at their jobs. The production crew are amazing. And I had an hour-long call with my producers every week between June and the end of August, and we just went through everything, my pitch, my wardrobe, my presentation, the photos that would be used, everything. We just went over it over and over again. And so by the time I walked out onto the set, yes, it was nerve-wracking and terrifying and surreal, but I couldn't have been better prepared by that point. And your pitch especially, they make you go over it a million times. So by the time you walk out there, you are word perfect. And I'm hugely grateful to them for doing that. And they wrote it for me as well. That I wrote the first draft, and then they worked their Shark Tank magic on it. And in their first draft, written off the back of my first draft, we never changed a word after that. They were so good at their jobs that they got it so right on the first shot that was the pitch I used in the studio.
Well, that is crazy. I had not heard that before. I mean, I know they go over the pitch and they'll revise it. And I've here on the channel in the super community, we've heard, like, start with an 11-minute pitch and then work it down to 7 minutes, and then work it down again to 5 minutes and 2 minutes, and then 90 seconds. And what are you going to cut? Like, it's tough.
It was definitely, the pitch they wrote was definitely their rewriting of my pitch, but it was rewritten in the Shark Tank style, which it has to be, right?
Yeah.
It has to be that snappy. You know, they know which bits to focus on. They know where, they tell you where to emphasize. They, you know, they know what they're doing. They're very, very good, and thank God for them.
Yeah, and I mean, from a production standpoint, it saves time and money. You know, time is money, especially when the cameras are on and the editors are editing after the fact. Like, it really helps narrow in the, reduces their production time after the post-production time after the fact, as well as the Sharks' time, because they're seeing 8 to 9 people a day on that carpet, which is brutal. In my opinion, for them to do that for like 40 pitches or 40 plus pitches a season.
Yeah, I mean they don't
80. They don't know, like 90s is like 22 times 4 is 88. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't seem too ruffled. They're they know what they're doing, don't they?
Oh, at this point, you would certainly imagine so.
Yeah.
So how did you go about balancing all that, like, with your wife's situation? Which how is your wife doing?
Well, that's another long story.
Okay, I'll table the other question, the second question, or the first question. The second question.
She got sick with COVID in April 2020, and just couldn't get better. And so by the beginning of last year, she was in bad shape. And so that was when we had this discussion that culminated in her going back to her parents for what ended up being nearly 11 months. So by the time I flew to LA to do Shark Tank in September, she had been away from me and the kids for 8 months. And so on the one hand, obviously, it was devastating for us as a family. We all missed her. The kids missed her. I missed her. You know, a family's meant to be together. But it did enable me to get a lot done with the business, including, the Shark Tank preparation. And so I did Shark Tank. She, by that point, it's sort of been a case of, let's just get Shark Tank out of the way, and then you can come home, because then I'll have a lot more time on my hands to help. So she came back in early November, and then suddenly started making amazing progress and got better very, very quickly. And to all intents and purposes, it was back to full health. And then at the beginning of February this year, she was effectively back to full health. And then one weekend, she and I and our son all got sick with what we all thought was flu. And my son and I had been vaccinated for flu this winter, and Freya hadn't. So when he and I got better and she didn't, we just, again, thought it was flu. To cut a long story short, she didn't have flu. She had very aggressive endocarditis and was admitted into hospital 10 days later because her fever was spiking at 104.6 degrees at night. And she was admitted to hospital on the 6th of February, and on the 13th of February, she had emergency open heart surgery, which saved her life. And if it had been left another 24 hours, she would have died. So COVID was gone, and then suddenly this happened. So, yeah, that's the answer to your question.
Wow, that is incredible. Like, I'm so sorry that you've had to go through all that, and commend you. I mean, I did that. I said that, I'm pretty sure, in my video, how incredible you are for being able to, because, like, having kids is a full-time job, right? Like, it especially when you start talking about more than one kid, having to be a caretaker for another person who's unable to care for themselves is another full-time job. And then having a business, I mean, it's like 5, 10. I mean, there isn't enough time to explain all the hats that you had to probably, that you have to wear in running a business and getting it off the ground and getting it successful, while trying to make sure that the kids are getting the homework done, or eating dinner, because we're talking about Noshi, right? Or was it? Yeah, Noshi, sorry. And all the things that you have to do, like, I mean, having 2 kids that are, healthy, in my case, like, or mostly healthy, in my case, it's hard enough, right? To be involved in, like, if they're in sports or activities and all these things that, like, I think a lot of people discount or look the other way of, or just, like, like, oh well, that's what the my spouse is for, right? They'll just take care of all that. And that's not how I operate, and it's not how me and my wife operate. So it's incredible amounts of energy and effort and dedication to make it work. And to have that, your wife going through all that, and I'm so glad that she was able to get that surgery, and that she was here and capable of getting that surgery here in the States, because not everybody's that lucky, right? I mean,
she's now again almost back to full health. She's starting to actually do bits and pieces of consultancy work, which is an amazing, it's the first time she's worked in 3 years.
Wow. Well, that is phenomenal that she's finally getting to a place where she feels like she can work. And it's I know the mental anguish. I know when I've been sick for extended periods of time, the mental anguish of not being able to do things and feel useful to not only others but to myself, I know is a real gymnastics worth of mental stuff going on to as well as the health related.
She had just she'd launched a Substack the day before she got sick with endocarditis. She was she announced her return to the workforce the day before she got sick. So it was just like, my God, how the timing, what else is going to be thrown at us anytime soon? It just seems like it's relentless. It's like you get one step forward, and then it's not one step forward and 2 steps back, it's one step forward and 72 steps back. But as I say, she made amazing progress after the surgery. She's back, and she was home within 3 weeks of the surgery, and she's looking like she's pretty much back to normal.
Oh, that is great. I'm so glad to hear that. Going back to the first question before I dived into the second question there, oh crud, was it balancing? Like, how did you go about balancing all this though in the time? I mean, your wife was in England when you were preparing for Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
But balancing, even with 2 kids.
I'd been a stay-at-home parent since our daughter was born, basically, which was in 2006. So I was very, people, the cliche is it's hard work being a stay-at-home parent. It's not hard, it's frustrating, because you get a routine and you stick to it. You've got these small people that you need to look after, you need to keep them happy and healthy and well fed. And it's not hard to do that. It's frustrating if you've got aspirations to do more with your life. So that was the bit about stay-at-home parenting that I found hard. But it wasn't, the main part of it was frustration. I was like, I need to be doing more. I want to be doing more. And so when actually the idea for Food Paint was put in front of me is that I was sitting at home in 2013 with my kids, were 7 and 3, and my son had just started preschool, and I was like, right, I need to speak to some grown-ups. I need some adult company. So I volunteered to do friendly visiting with the elderly, and was paired with this amazing guy called Ben on the Upper West Side, who had just suffered a stroke. And so I started seeing him on Friday mornings. And from the very first week that I went to visit him, his wife, Peggy, would also sit with us. And the 3 of us got on amazingly well, and became fast friends. And we talked about the fact that my kids were picky eaters, and not necessarily picky eaters, but just they weren't getting excited about meal times. And the fact that I was trying, I spent a lot of my free time looking in grocery stores for products that might interest them in meal times, and couldn't find anything. And then I started joking about how that might end up being my new career, because I had previously worked in the fashion industry and didn't want to go back to that. And then one evening, Peggy emailed me and she said, I've got an idea for a food product. And it was the genesis of the idea of Food Paint.
Oh, that hey, look, every was it necessity breeds is the mother of invention, right? And that's having 2 kids that, I mean, for us, the best thing we've done to date is like put a meal chart with, like, it's basically just a plate with like a fork and spoon, and then they just get to draw a star on the plate whenever they try something new. And they've been trying to like well, if I try this candy, can I get a star? And like, no, candy's, not part of that. But
Yeah.
if you, you try something at the dinner table, yeah, like we'll absolutely get your star, get 10 stars, we'll get you a prize. And I mean, it can be so difficult. It's also difficult just to keep that up because, truth be told, when you have two kids that are both in sports activities and things like that, like dinner time isn't always together at the dinner table because like we're shoveling food in our mouth so we can get out the door in time and be there where we're supposed to be for softball, t-ball, karate, swim lessons, piano. Like it's a mess, man.
But that is also quite an interesting thing to say, because what millennial parents seem to have worked out, and millennial moms and dads are my target audience, they've worked out that, traditionally my generation, my parents' generation, we were told to sit down at this time and eat that food that's been put in front of us. And of course, it's the same as being told you've got to go to school. Generally speaking, if you're told you have to do something, it immediately becomes unenjoyable before you even start doing it, because you're like, why have I got to do this that way? So what I was trying to do differently was find a food product that didn't necessarily cure picky eating, but cured negated the need for that conflict at mealtime. So instead of kids dreading getting up to the table, they had a reason to look forward to getting up to the table. And what millennial parents seem to have worked out is that they have a far more laissez-faire attitude to mealtimes. That mealtimes are much less regimented. For millennial parent families, the time isn't so regimented, the ingredients aren't so regimented, the location isn't so regimented, and that's the right approach, I think. Like, ultimately, this is all about giving control back to your kids. They have this superpower, which is the ability to say no, and they always exercise it at mealtimes. That's where they most have the ability to say no. They can't say no, I'm not going to school, but they can say no, I'm not going to eat this food. So if you can sort of deflate that balloon and give them no reason to fight back against you, that's where I'm coming from. Why has nobody before me created a food product specifically for use by children? Why have more people not worked out that just give the responsibility to them? They love it. They love to be trusted. They love to be given responsibility. They love to feel a little bit more in control of a situation. And so for modern families to be eating, at different times each day, outside, inside, on the move, in the car, different ingredients, not hassling your children to finish every last scrap of their broccoli, it's fine. Children don't starve to death. My daughter's preschool principal, it was our first experience of school because it was our first child, and she was taking packed lunches and she wasn't eating them, and we panicked as parents. Oh my God, she's going to starve to death. And of course, the principal just said, I've never known a child starve themselves to death. And it's true. We put all this pressure on children to eat more food, eat more healthy food. They're not going to starve to death. So let them eat what they want, and how they want it is sort of my general thinking. Of course, you have to give them some guidance and keep them inside the guardrails, but you can give a lot of the power back to them, and it works, is what I've found.
Ding ding. I keep trying to remind my wife of that every time. It's been a battle back and forth. That's how we ended up with the star chart thing, right? It was like, my wife would just be like, oh, I'll make that hot dog for dinner so that Dom will eat, and I'll make the mac and cheese for Ava because she'll eat that, and then we would have whatever we're gonna have for dinner. And I'm like, stop doing that. Like, you're just pushing into, playing right into you making 3 different meals for dinner every night for the rest of forever and not pushing their boundaries.
That's not great. I mean, of course.
No, it's not. I know it's not.
Explaining
She
it in very
wasn't either.
terms. I mean, that situation, cooking 3 meals for 4 people, is something that I've touched upon and I'm never going back to. But I think, again, it's a balancing act, isn't it? It's like, on the one hand, yes, I'm not going to, you can't push your luck, but I will give you a bit more responsibility if you appreciate it and act responsibly with it. It's the more you give back, the more I give you.
Yeah, you got to give them responsibility, right? If they don't get the responsibility, like how are they going to learn how to otherwise? They don't come out, knowing responsibility and knowing what to do with that responsibility,
Yeah.
and the privilege that comes with that. But yeah, no, it's one of those things that I think that giving them that opportunity to be rewarded, or in the case of Nashi, to be able to be creative, and be able to play with that food, or have something that enable. Like I love that you were coming out from the perspective of like, let's make what we have enjoyable, so it's not dreadful time for them to come to it. And to answer your question about millennials, since I am technically millennial, like I'm at the top end of millennial, it's it's more out of necessity than anything to not have that regimented time. Though the other day, I pointed out to my wife, I said, you need to stop letting Ava eat her breakfast cereal on the couch, or breakfast, whatever breakfast is, because
Yeah.
she like nests herself into the couch and puts on the TV. And I'm fine with her watching some TV, but she's nested, she's very clearly taking the blanket, wrapping around herself, and laying there. And then when it's time to get up to like go to school, or go get ready to go to school, no, I don't want to do that. Like, yeah, of course you don't. You let her get in the couch. She's in her comfy zone. I wouldn't want to either, right? Like, don't let her eat there.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I do try and get my kids to eat at the table. That's for sure.
We have a counter, like an island counter, but we also have our kitchen table, and I don't mind so much that they if they eat a snack out in the living room, but that's like not when the expectation is go, now we need to get up and go and do things, right? Not like rest and just lay on the couch and it's a rainy day or whatever and we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
That's not what this is. This is, we need to get ready for school. Like, you need to eat, you got 25 minutes and then you got to get upstairs and do the things.
Yeah.
So going into the tank, did you have a shark in mind that you wanted to be able to partner up with?
I did, and it was the shark I ended up with, but I didn't dare think or hope that it would happen, because Mark is, he's quite silent in the studio. He lets the other guys do a lot of the talking and glean a lot of the information out of the entrepreneurs. So he was over there and they were all bombarding me with questions. I mean, the producers had said, just be prepared. Once you finish your pitch, all hell's going to break loose and you'll find it completely overwhelming. And that's pretty much what happened. I was in front of them for 45 minutes and I don't actually remember very much of what happened at all, because it was constant. And you're being asked 3 questions at once and you're trying to be polite and answer all of them. And Mark was very quiet, and he asked me 3 questions, I think, in total. But they were all, I remember them all because they were all really clever, interesting questions. And I would like to think that based on, not only on my product, but on the answers I gave him, I think that probably played a part in his decision-making process. But yeah, he was the one I wanted and he's the one I got. So thanks, Mark.
Now, one question I did have when watching the pitch again the other day in preparation was the pancake on the plate. Was that stuck to the plate, or did you just handle it very gently so that it didn't slide?
I don't know. It might have been stuck to the plate. It was there when I walked out. They had told me it would be there, and they'd suggested what to do with it. But yeah, I would imagine it might have been stuck to the plate. I mean, having said that, I'm sure if I'd tipped it up too much, it probably would have fallen off. So,
and it would have made great TV too. Like, hey, let's check out this.
Yeah, well, that would have ruined my picture, wouldn't it?
It's one of those things that stood out. It didn't stand out to me in the moment watching it, because it's a lot, when I do my reaction, it's all live, like in real time. But watching it back, I'm like, oh wow, like, yeah, was that stuck to the plate? I would think it would be, but then again, maybe not. So it makes great TV.
Yeah.
Now, going into the tank, how did you come up with your valuation that you wanted to offer? Because 250,000 for 17% is kind of a odd number. Well, literally an odd number, but just this is something that you don't hear very often. Looking for 17%.
I spoke to the Shark Tank business advisor, who was, again, amazing. You know, they're all really, really good, and they help you in so many different ways to prepare for your big reveal in the studio. And it was a combination of you know, the valuation I had talked about to them, and you know, the you know, apparently $250,000 is a number that, you know, is generally advised that you don't ask for more than that, because $250,000 is a lot of money. And a lot of these people walking, a lot of us walking onto that studio floor, you know, we have very, very young companies with, you know, that are at a certain point in their evolution. So I think to suggest that your company is worth tens of millions of dollars, there are exceptions, of course, and they're right sometimes, but for the most part, I think, you know, a lot of the entrepreneurs who walk onto that floor are at a certain stage in their company's evolution. And so based on that and the conversation I had with the Shark Tank business advisor, I actually can't remember. I think 250 for 17% values the company at 1.5 million. And that was the number that the business advisor and I, you know, decided was the right one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just shy of 1.5 million, 147.
Yeah.
1.47 and change. So okay, so I mean, it makes sense. It's just a little, like, it's just a bit of an odd
17,
thing. But you're not wrong. Like, you know, they're not wrong. Of anything over 250,000 is really pushing it. No matter how much money, you know, how much percentage you're offering up for the deal, even if you may be worth it. It's because I mean, it's asking a lot of any one particular, unless we're talking about Mark, but even Mark values his money too. So it's
everybody values their money, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, but he's being the only billionaire there. It's a little bit different for him than it would be for some of the other sharks that are 100 millionaires, you know, hundreds of millionaires, which is a lot, but 250,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 is a large percentage of their net worth, you know, a lot larger percentage than somebody who's worth over at least a billion, maybe multiple billions. I'm not sure.
I think any smart business people are careful with their money.
Yeah, as they absolutely should be, and I think that's, you know, coming in for anything over 250,000 is tough. It makes it really hard to get a deal. So with that said, you went in and you were talking about, you know, Walmart, or you were being asked about Walmart deal. You were asked about the low sales to date, and how were you feeling in the moment when those kind of questions came up? Or I mean, I assume you were prepared for them to be talked about, especially the low sales one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm intimately familiar with my business, and it is me. I am it. It is me. I have, you know, my business is like my twin, and we've come on this journey together. And the sales were what they were because I've never had a marketing budget, and my only investment has come from family and friends. And again, you know, my wife was sick for 2.5 years before 2.5 years before I walked onto the stage. So that's had an effect on how much money I've been able to devote to the business and what I've taken out of the business. Yeah, I was ready for all the answers. I was ready for all the questions, and I had answers to all the questions. Again, you know, I was rehearsed over and over and over again through the whole of last summer, which is not to say I was given answers or told to invent answers. Everything was, you know, they were just telling me the sort of questions you might expect, and, you know, to have the answers to those questions ready. And so you walk onto that stage terribly well prepared, whether you think you are or not. Of course, I'm sure most people, as did I, walk onto that stage thinking, oh my God, I'm completely unprepared. I can't remember any of the answers. And then, of course, you walk onto the stage and they say action and the questions come, and lo and behold, you've suddenly remember all the answers.
It's well, I mean, it's different. I mean, I've gotten different answers about that over the last couple of years about people blocking out and not being able to remember anything. Like, they're like, oh yeah, go walk, and it's like, doop, lights go out inside, and they're just like zombie mode
I
walking
will
down.
say,
And
yeah, I suppose the one sort of I was in front of them for 45 minutes, and I came off that stage a gibbering wreck, convinced that I had blown it, convinced I'd given terrible answers to all the questions, and convinced I was the least articulate person on the face of the earth. Which, it is hugely, is a very, very high pressure situation, and you do fluff your lines a few times. And they've got extremely good editors, yes, but at the same time, the questions I was asked on the show and the answers I gave on the show, none of that was edited. Those were the questions they asked, and those were the answers I gave. There were some other questions where probably my answer wasn't as articulate, and they chose not to use that one in the broadcast. But again, I always go back to the Eminem things. I've got one shot here, and I'm going to make damn sure I get it.
Absolutely there. When you're getting those questions, obviously, it is like you said, all hell breaks loose, and lots of questions come, and especially now that the Sharks are so spread out, really makes it difficult for you to hear them. But when when you're giving those answers, and you said you felt like you weren't articulate or anything like that, which has got to be hard, because as a British man with a British accent, I assume you're British, right?
Yeah,
I could have been wrong. With the accent and all, everything you say just sounds so official, and like as if it's coming from the word of God, God's mouth to somebody's ears. It's that official.
Thank you.
But you're welcome. So I think that's a great lesson for anybody to feel like, even people that have like that, a great accent that sounds official no matter what they're saying, can still feel internal that, I didn't say it right, or I didn't answer it properly, or I didn't give a great answer.
Yeah, I mean, my wife does a lot of public speaking, or did a lot of public speaking, and I used to play hooky from school on the days when I knew I had to stand on stage in front of the class and give a presentation. It's not something I enjoy doing. And you can walk onto a stage at a conference and speak in front of 1,000 people about your specialist subject and probably feel confident doing so. I think walking onto the stage at Shark Tank, it's insane, because it's Shark Tank. Those people are who they are, so that's quite intimidating as well. That you've got one shot. It's a 45-minute thing. It's not like they do multiple takes. They turn the camera on and you just do it for 45 minutes or an hour. And on top of all of that, this is my business, my baby. I want to make sure I present it properly. I want to make sure that I get a deal. And the stress of thinking about what happens if I don't get a deal. Not only will I not have got a deal, but does that then reflect badly on my business as well? There's so much going on in that moment, as you walk onto the stage and then stand there ready to go. It's insane. And that's probably, I don't remember very much from my wedding day either. And I think it's the same thing. It's built up so so big in advance, and then suddenly the floodgates open and it just all happens, and it all happens so quickly, and it is a lot going on, and there's a lot to absorb. I'm not surprised I don't remember very much of it. And I'm sure I wasn't as inarticulate as I worry, but their editors are very, very good. I will give them that.
No, look, hey, wedding days are stressful, long, and usually more, like, from my my impression and experience, more fun for the people that you've invited than the people actually going through the process. And then in my experience as well, like, it was very abbreviated. We're talking about mealtime, like we didn't even really get to eat our own dinners. So you get Mark 25%, 250,000. how are you, other than feeling like you might have been inarticulate walking out of the tank? How else were you feeling about that?
After I got the deal,
Yes.
dumbstruck. I mean, not because I was surprised that I got a deal, but just like, oh my god, this is real. It's happened, and I succeeded. It's an amazing feeling, and I got the one I was hoping to get as well. Yeah, it was an amazing feeling. It was that it still is. You know, it's amazing to be able to think Mark Cuban's my business partner, and we are partners in a business together, and I'm able to communicate with him on a regular basis and take advice from him on a regular basis, and that advice is incredibly good. All of his emails are extremely focused and in response to something I've put in front of him, and it's always the right advice, and it's just great. He wouldn't be who he is if he wasn't that good.
No, well, absolutely. I know that I know a couple of other people that have gotten deals with Mark have been able to send emails at like 4 or 5 in the morning, East Coast time, which he's not East Coast time, at least when he's in Dallas. Or Dallas is 1 hour behind. I think it's 1 hour
It's
behind.
1 hour behind, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like being able to send and get replies like within 10 minutes is incredible, because I know I am not as good with my email as apparently he is, which is a skill.
Yeah, he definitely always replies. Sometimes he is extremely busy, and sometimes it's just a 1-sentence response, and sometimes it's more. But yeah, it's an amazing thing to have access to. It's great.
100%. So leaving the tank, heading home, what was some of the first things you did with your business to get prepared for potentially getting to air on Shark Tank?
It's tricky. It's quite trying to work out how to answer that question. I had to commit to moving to a bigger co-packer, which was daunting, I think, for anybody to get to a point where you actually realize you're going to have to move co-packers. It's an awful thing to have to admit, because it's a really stressful thing to do. It's like moving house, but times 100, especially if you own all of your own machinery. It's probably much more stressful if you own all of your own machinery, as I do. So, you sort of put off that decision, and then finally you're like, I've got to do this. So you do it, and it's always takes 10 times longer than you think it's going to, and it's always 10 times more expensive than you think it's going to be. So really that was the biggest thing, moving to a co-packer that I knew I could then grow with, up to any size I needed to, at any rate I needed to. That was the biggest thing I had to commit to, and I'm glad I did commit to doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a scary thought. I mean, knowing at least one co-packing company, they, to have your process, and then like, okay, we're gonna like we're gonna move it, and hopefully everything goes the way it's supposed to, right? Everything goes to plan. But then if it doesn't, like, now we are potentially out of business. We're could be real in trouble, like real quick.
Yeah, I mean, had to move co-packer, had to launch SketchUp into 1,600 Walmart locations.
Woo!
From that was our launch. That's how SketchUp launched. That's how it came into the world. It went straight into 1,600 Walmart locations.
Wow.
And I needed to prepare for any eventuality that might come about off the back of the episode airing as well. So there's a lot of money being committed to being spent.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So once you found out that you were going to be airing on Shark Tank, did you guys wind up having a launch party or a watch party or anything, or what?
For weeks actually probably for months in advance, I said, I'm not going to watch it. I can't. It's too stressful. Even though I know what happened, and I know that what happened was good, I actually don't know whether I can sit and watch myself do that, and watch myself. Because again, until I saw how smoothly it had been edited. I was just convinced I was going to come across as a gibbering wreck. And then, of course, about 2 weeks before it aired, somebody pointed out that, you've got to watch it with your kids. It's a big deal for them. And as soon as they said that, I'm like, you're right, absolutely. We invited one couple over to sit and watch it with us. And it was really nice. I'd spoken to a couple of other people in the run up to it airing, and they'd either had a party at a bar or were invited. And both of those people regretted being in this ball of people, cheering for them, and they said it was just sensory overload, and if they'd had a chance to do it again, they would have done it with a much smaller group of friends. So I sort of took that on board as well. But for the the priority was, I just want to watch it with my kids, and Freya, of course. That I just want to be here, being able to watch it, being able to hear it, and it worked really well. It was really enjoyable for all of us.
It's almost like if I was thinking that through, I'd be like, we're gonna have this I don't know, hall or whatever we rent, right, for everybody. I'm gonna be in like the green room or like the dressing, like the room where the bridesmaids would be hanging out, or whatever place we're renting, to watch it with my kids. And then after we watch it, I'll walk out and I'll enjoy it with everybody, and so I don't have to do that. But I totally understand. Though I will say, if you had asked me, I would say they would not want Mark Cuban looking like he's investing in a babbling idiot. So
No.
they are, and so at the end of the day, like, being the executive producer that he is of the show, I'm sure they would not want him to look dumb investing in somebody who looks like they don't know what they're doing.
No, I think I would like to think that he saw something in the product, and that's why he invested in it. I think he did. I mean, based on the communications I have with him and the things that we discuss, I certainly get the impression that he feels he was right to invest in the company, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it worth his while having invested in the company.
Oh, 1,000%. I'm talking about specifically from the edit of Shark Tank. Like, they don't want it to look on national TV like, oh wow, like why did Mark decided on this one? Like, so they're going to make you look good so that Mark can also look good, right? And that's
yeah.
That's how I would have looked at it. Like if I had those concerns.
Yeah, maybe they edit people who end up not getting a deal. Maybe they edit them in a less flattering way. I don't know, having not watched the show very much.
I mean, for the most part, I feel like, going back and watching some of these older episodes, it definitely, I mean, they used to be very much over the top with their attacking of the entrepreneurs and things. Like, it's very much the softer Tank now than it ever was, 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't lived in England for 25 years, but I know that the English version is called Dragon's Den, and I know that the dragons on Dragon's Den are far more aggressive in their interrogation of the entrepreneurs than the sharks are here. I've always thought that was because America's a bigger country, there's more money here, and I think the sharks here see that anyone who walks in front of them might be, $1 billion idea, and so it would be remiss of them not to give everybody a fair hearing and treat everybody equally. Whereas in England, and these are huge assumptions I'm making here, but England's a smaller country, and I think it's just from where I'm sitting, it looks like it comes down to the differing size of the two economies and the potential for what a good idea could become here versus what a good idea could become there.
I mean, I don't know how the Pet Rock sold in England, but like it did pretty good over here. It still does. It still gets sold today, out there in the wild. But so just to clarify, you did get to watch it with your kids, which is great. Yeah, good. How did you wind up coming up against my video? And have you watched my video?
I haven't, because again, it's because that would involve me watching myself on the show.
Yeah,
which I did watched myself on the show again the morning after with a clear head, because of course I came away from watching it on the Friday night thinking, well, actually I come across okay. I don't look too bad. I sound pretty articulate. And then I just watched it again quietly myself the next morning. And I went out for a walk and spoke to my uncle, who is one of our shareholders. And I said, I'm trying to work, and he's in England. And I said, I'm trying to work out how you can see it. And he said, I've already seen it. And I said, how? And he said, he said, I found it on YouTube. There's a guy called Joe Pardo. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, so that's how I found out about you.
Was he the one that told you I wanted to have you on for an interview, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I extend it to all super entrepreneurs, and love the opportunity to get to talk to people and talk, the experience and the business and how things are going and all that. So that's you might be the first person that has come on that hasn't watched the video.
No, I again, it's just me. It's always been me. I played hooky from school on those days. Was the idea of standing in front of people is really not my bag, and I'm just one of those people who doesn't really like watching themselves for whatever reasons.
I'm really, for your sake, I'm really glad that they didn't decide to bring you in for the live episode.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that would have been too much.
So growing up, what was your dream? Like, what was your childhood dream like?
I grew up in the English countryside, which was rather idyllic. And then two things happened in the summer of 1985. First of all, and I remember this vividly, my mother came home one day and handed me a magazine out of the window of her car as she was parking outside our house. And it was a magazine called The Face, which was a sort of style magazine that was very trendy in England at the time. And it had George Michael on the cover. And I took it inside and read it. And it's sort of, this is a weird thing to say, silly thing to say, but it did change my life. I was like, oh my God, there's this amazing world in London. It was a very London-centric magazine with all of these shops and all of these nightclubs and all of this music and all of the, and I was like, wow, that's pretty bloody cool. And then a month later, my father died very, very suddenly at the age of 38.
Oh, wow.
Which of course, there's a radio show in England called Desert Island Discs, where they interview people from all walks of life, successful people from all walks of life, be they brain surgeons, rock stars, authors, movie stars, directors. And a huge number of them, I've noticed over the years, all lost a parent when they were very young. And it seems to have an effect on people. And I talked about this in the tank, actually. I didn't use it on the episode. And it sort of, it feels like you've been shot out of a cannon. Why that is, I don't really know. But you sort of, whether it's because you want to run away from that place because that happened in that place, I don't know. But he died, and sort of overnight, I was like, right, I'm moving to London as fast as possible to do the stuff that I am reading about in this magazine. And then I started reading other magazines. I started reading Vogue magazine. And I remember, again, sitting one day looking through a copy of my mother's Vogue magazine, and there was a photo shoot of a model on a beach. And I happened to just glance down to the bottom of the page, and it had the credits of everybody who was on that shoot on that beach. And I was like, oh, real people with real job titles. I'd quite like to be one of those people. And so that's what happened. The next year, I turned 16, moved to London, lived with my aunt and uncle. And by the time I was 19, I was working at Vogue. I did a summer internship at Vogue, and then that led to another full-time job on another magazine. And that's what I did. I worked in fashion. I wanted to work in fashion. I wanted to be a photographer initially, but ended up getting sidetracked and did all sorts of weird things. I was a fashion editor. I was an agent. I was a product photographer. I was a producer. I was a bookings editor on Elle magazine in London. That's what I wanted to do. And so that's what I did for 25 years until our kids turned up. And then I felt like I'd grown out of it. I was it's a young person's industry. It was amazing. I would highly recommend it to anybody who's even remotely interested in it. But I had definitely grown out of it. And so that's when I became a stay-at-home parent. And that's how I sort of turned into a kids food entrepreneur.
Wow, that is some dedication. I think well, I mean, I think because I think about it today and I'm like, how would you not have known sooner, right? But you got to think back like 85, like the internet wasn't a thing and you're saying the countryside, so like I don't know what your TV situation was like for, visual arts and things coming through, but
I think that day when she handed that magazine to me through the car window, I suddenly realized that there was more to life than this little hill that it was literally a hill called Pancake Hill that we lived on in the
oh,
English.
you live next to Peppa Pig, cool.
Almost, yeah. But suddenly this magazine opened my eyes to the fact that there was this other stuff over there that I could become involved in and become interested in and maybe make a career out of. And so I did it.
Wow, that's awesome. So what's the future of Noshi Sorry, Noshi looking.
Oh, it's Noshi. It's Noshi.
Noshi. I said it right the first time.
It's fine. I'll forgive you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The future for Noshi. I'd like to do more savory condiments. I'd like to do SketchUp, crayonnaise, and must art. I'd like to do bigger tubes one day. I'd like to do individual tubes sold per Mark's suggestion in the studio, whether they are individual tubes sold on the menu at IHOP, which I think would be an amazing opportunity. Sachets, with a controllable spout.
And so you say words wrong too.
Yeah, of course.
We all do.
The thinking behind it is getting kids to enjoy meal times, and if there's an element of creativity involved as well, then all the better. Food Paint initially was conceived as a 6-pack with 3 vegetable flavors and 3 fruit flavors, and the production cost just would have been so prohibitively high that I put the vegetable flavors out and put them to one side. We've signed a license deal with Very Hungry Caterpillar, and that's where I want to launch the vegetable flavors. It's not going to happen today or next week or next month, but I think that's a pretty cool thing, and that would probably be baby food, right? So it's all organic. The focus has to be organic. Everything has to remain organic and will always be organic, but it's organic and it's giving kids more responsibility, designing products that can be used by children, giving them, more autonomy and showing them that you trust them. And if I can build a family of products around that ethos, then that's what I'm hoping to do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I love the Very Hungry Caterpillar. It's great book. We were just reading it the other night to our son.
Thank you.
No problem. So where can everybody go to get their Noshi?
Food Paint is available.
Noshi.
Food Paint is available on Amazon. SketchUp will be available on Amazon next month. SketchUp's also available at most.
I see you're sold out here, but not Amazon, which is awesome.
Amazon, it's okay. On our website, it's sold out. We're working overtime to get it back in stock on the website. I would go to Amazon if I were you. And and SketchUp, you can probably find it in your local Walmart.
Love it. Cool. So yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tomo, for coming on the show and sharing your experience and your stories and all. And I'm so glad that your wife is doing better, and then doing better again. Through the COVID time warp, which is 2020 to now, and how much time has passed. And like, hey, that was just last year. No, that was like 4 years ago now. When you're talking about 2019,
craziness, absolute craziness. I mean, it's as a family, we've had a really, I'm not going to say rough ride of it, because I know many, many, many families have had a much worse time than us, but it's been sort of insane. I don't really know how we've all managed to come out the other side of it with our sanity, to be honest. My main concern was keeping the kids as happy as possible, and they're both doing really well. I mean, Freya's doing amazingly well. She's recovered amazingly from the heart surgery. The kids are great, and I apparently still have my sanity as well.
Yay! Well, thank you again, Tavo, for taking the time and being here, and thank you for making it all the way to the end of this interview. If you haven't watched Tomo's interview, Shark Tank pitch, click on it up here. If not, I'll see you in the video down below. Take care and go be super.
Thank you so much, Joe.